You are listening to Lighthearted, the official podcast of the United States Lighthouse Society. My name is Jeremy D'Entremont. Welcome. My co-host today is Cindy Johnson, award-winning volunteer and chapter leadership committee member of Friends of Portsmouth Harbor Lighthouses. Hi, Cindy.
Hi, Jeremy.
This is episode 116 of Lighthearted, and today is April 28th, 2021. We'll be traveling to Sweden again for part 2 of 2 episodes about Pater Noster Lighthouse. Today's subject is a unique event, the recent contest where a person was chosen to spend a week at the remote lighthouse to watch films as part of the largest film festival in Scandinavia. We'll be talking with the artistic director of the film festival and with the winner of the contest. But first, what has happened on this date in history, Cindy?
Construction of 30 Mile Point Lighthouse on Lake Ontario, New York, began on April 28, 1875. It got its name because it's 30 miles from the mouth of the Niagara River. The light was first exhibited from the limestone tower just about a year later on April 27, 1876. The rotating third-order Fresnel lens produced a light that was 600,000 candle power and could be seen 16 miles out into Lake Ontario. Today, the 30 Mile Point Light Station is within Golden Hill State Park, and the nonprofit Friends of 30 Mile Point Lighthouse work for the preservation of the property. You can rent the assistant keeper's quarters by the night or the week.
Also, the author Harper Lee was born in Alabama on April 28, 1926. She wrote in To Kill a Mockingbird, quote, "People generally see what they look for and hear what they listen for," unquote.
Also, Associate Justice of the Supreme Court Elena Kagan was born in New York City on April 28, 1960. She once said, quote, "Law matters because it keeps us safe, because it protects our most fundamental rights and freedoms, and because it is the foundation of our democracy," unquote.
As I mentioned, this is the second of 2 episodes about the Pater Noster Lighthouse. As we told you in the last episode, Pater Noster is a small archipelago off the west coast of Sweden. A 105-foot-tall cast-iron lighthouse was constructed on one of the islands in 1868. The tower was moved from the island to shore for a restoration that began in 2002, and today the light station is operated as a small hotel that features rooms with a sea view, a restaurant, and 3 boathouses for dinner and conferences.
Today we'll be talking about a film festival's partnership with the Pater Noster Lighthouse Hotel. The Gothenberg Film Festival, which began in 1979, is the largest film festival in the Nordic countries. Because of COVID restrictions, this year's 11-day festival was held digitally with premiere screenings every night.
This year, the festival organizers created an isolated cinema event. It was announced that a winner would be selected to spend a week watching film premieres at the isolated Pater Noster Lighthouse. The winner would have to commit to living in isolation on the island, completely without contact with the outside world, and also to keep a video diary of the experience.
The contest was announced with an online video, and more than 12,000 entries were received from more than 45 countries. On January 19th, the festival selected Lisa Enroth, a 41-year-old emergency nurse and film enthusiast, as the winner. The CEO of the festival said it felt right to give the opportunity to one of the many heroes working in healthcare during the pandemic.
We'll listen to an interview with Lisa shortly. But first, Jonas Holmberg is a movie critic who founded a film magazine called FLM. He joined the festival in 2012 and became the artistic director in 2014. I spoke with him last month about the film festival's contest involving Pater Noster Lighthouse. Let's listen to that conversation now. I'm here with Jonas Holmberg, and he is the director of the, and Jonas, I want to ask you to correct me in a moment here, but you're the artistic director of the Göteborg Film Festival in Sweden. And I appreciate you being with me today, Jonas. Thank you so much.
I'm happy to be here.
Thank you.
Your pronunciation was perfect.
I doubt very much that it was perfect. It's probably no surprise to you that I don't speak Swedish, and Swedish pronunciations are baffling to me. I looked online and came up with at least an approximation of the pronunciation there. So can you tell me the proper pronunciation of your name in Swedish? And secondly, please correct my pronunciation of the film festival.
Yeah, well, when I speak to Americans, I usually say Jonas Holmberg, but if I talk to Swedish people, I say Jonas Holmberg. So it's a little bit different, and the festival is Göteborg Film Festival in Sweden, and the city of Gothenburg, which is sometimes used internationally also.
Okay, thank you. And when we started, I was going to say, hey, right? Hey.
Yeah, perfect. Hey.
Hur mår du?
Jag mår bra. Hur mår du?
Jag mår bra. Okay. And, some people listening might understand what we just said, but just want to practice my Swedish a little bit. So before we talk about the recent event that involved the Pater Noster Lighthouse, I'd like to talk a little bit about the background of the film festival. How long has it been around, and what is the focus of the festival?
The festival has been around since 1979, which makes it the oldest film festival in Scandinavia, actually. And the focus since the start has been on the Nordic cinema, films from the Nordic region in Scandinavia. And so we screen films from all over the world, but what we're internationally famous for is presenting new Scandinavian films and Scandinavian filmmakers to the international audience. So that's our main, like, internationally focus. But for the audience in Sweden, we are also known from screening films from all over the world.
Okay, that's great. You certainly have a amazing film history there in Sweden and Scandinavia.
We do. And
Ingmar Bergman and several others, yeah.
Yeah. Ingmar Bergman was actually the honorary president of the festival until his death, and so we had a close relationship to him. And one of the competitions that we present at the festival is the Ingmar Bergman competition, which we founded together with him, for debutant filmmakers working kind of in his spirit.
Oh, that's great. That's great. By the way, I'm a film student from a million years ago, and I went to college for film in Boston, and I'm a real film buff. But before we talk about any films or anything like that, I really want to talk about the contest to stay at the Pater Noster Lighthouse for a week in conjunction with the festival. So what led to that decision to do a contest like that?
And the background is, of course, the pandemic, which has changed the film world and has changed film festivals. Since nowadays it's impossible to arrange physical festivals. So every film festival is online nowadays. And people are also watching films at home and online, and not at cinemas anymore as they used to be before the pandemic. And this is still the case in Sweden. I think maybe you have opened up a little bit of the theaters in US, but anyways, the idea for this contest and the screening films at a lighthouse was that we were reflecting on the pandemic and how the pandemic has changed people's lives, and how it has changed also people's relationship to cinema and to films. Because during the pandemic, so many people have been in isolation all over the world in their homes, and many of those have turned to cinema. And they have watched so many movies, and they have done this for comfort and for company, and to have something to think about. And we were interested in that, and because we also thought that it changes the experience of watching the films when you have watched them at home, and not with other people in the theater, but only in isolation with only yourself or your closest family. And for example, if you watch a comedy and you can't laugh with the other people in the cinema, it changes the experience. But also during this pandemic, some films has been very weird to see. I think for like normal simple scenes as like two people meeting on the street and hugging each other, it feels so weird to look at that. Or a big party with people going around, and these kind of scenes makes their meaning is different when you watch them in isolation during a pandemic. So we discussed that a lot, and how the pandemic has changed our relationship to films. And so then we thought, why don't we take this to the extreme, and see what happens if we not only take the experience that so many people have had during the pandemic, being in isolation, watching films, but we take it to the extreme. So we put one person in total isolation, and that this person will do nothing but only watching films. And then we came up with the idea that this lighthouse would be the perfect spot for this, because we did this at the lighthouse Pater Noster, which is a bit outside of Göteborg. And this lighthouse is a beautiful place, and it's also like perfect place to isolate one person, because it's very small. It's basically a rock in the sea, and with only the lighthouse and the old house where the lighthouse manager used to live next to it, and so there is nothing else. So you're really isolated there, and you can. So this was basically the idea, to experiment with the engagement with films in isolation.
So, by the way, in the U.S., there are some movie theaters open now, but some of the big chains have actually gone out of business. And the 2 movie theaters closest to me are closed permanently, which makes me very sad. Yeah. So the whole movie-going experience is definitely changing. Yep. So I read you had more than 12,000 entries in the competition.
Before we launched this, we said we have to talk to some friend's friend or somebody that we can put out there, because we weren't sure if we would get even one application, because it was still quite extreme to spend 1 week in this very, very small island all by yourself, and you weren't even allowed to bring anything. You weren't allowed to bring your phone or your computer or even a book, nothing. So you were there only with the films and the sea and the sky and the lighthouse, and that was it. So it was quite an extreme experience. So we didn't know if even one person would apply. But then, like, already in the first half an hour, we had applications from every continent. So there was a huge interest. And I think that has to do with this pandemic. At the same time, as it has been an experience of isolation, it has also been in some way an experience of community, because I don't know if this has never ever happened before, that so many people have experienced the same thing at the same time, and feeling the same things and reflecting on the same things. So I think really this kind of contest and this kind of experiment tied into what so many people had been reflecting on and thinking about and relating.
I'll tell you, I would have applied. If I was in any position to be there, I would have applied. So what were the reasons for the selection of Lisa Enroth as the winner?
We had some criteria when we should find a right person, and one of them is that it should be somebody who loves films, who loves watching movies, that could appreciate being there and watch all the festival films, because the films that were screened at the island and at the lighthouse was the same films that we screened at the same time at the film festival and the online film festival. And so it had to be somebody who could like that. And also we chose her because she's a huge film buff like you, and but she was also working as an emergency nurse at the hospital in her hometown, and so she has really spent this year in the front line against the pandemic and fighting the pandemic. And so we thought, when we had so many applications, we kind of didn't want to give it to this experience, maybe because there were lots of famous film directors and presidents of important film companies, famous people that applied, but we wanted to give this opportunity to somebody who really had spent this past year in the fight against the pandemic.
From the videos I've seen, her video diary that she kept while she was there, she was the perfect person to do that.
Yeah, she was great.
Yeah. So how did Lisa exactly watch the films at the lighthouse?
She watched them in a few different ways. We had arranged a screening room in the cabin, where she also lived, which was the old house of the lighthouse keeper. Not right now. The lighthouse it's giving light, but it's not really important for the seafarer anymore. But in the old times where it was very crucial to the seafarer and to the trade of Sweden, and there was a lighthouse keeper living there all year round, with their family, and they had this very small house, and this is the house where she lived. So we arranged a screening room there, but we also arranged a very small mini cinema in the top of the lighthouse, with a small projector and a small screen, and so she could also climb up to the top of this beautiful iron red lighthouse, and watched films after dark, of course, there in the very top of the lighthouse. Yeah.
That sounds absolutely amazing. Wow. what an experience. So the contest and Lisa's stay there certainly got a lot of media attention. I mean, that's how I found out about it. There were a lot of articles and publications and websites all over the world, it seems. Do you feel the whole thing went well?
Yes, it was, of course, overwhelming to receive this kind of response to this idea, and that was very interesting. And so many people all over the world engaged with this and related to this, and looked at the video diaries and followed her story. So that was great. Just today, this morning, I when I was on my bicycle on my way to the office, I met a friend who is working in the port. He's working with helping the big ships come to the right place. He's in a little boat and taking care of showing the way for the big boats. And there was a big ship from Russia coming in, and they have never been to Sweden before, the sailors or the people who were working on the ship, but the only thing they knew about was this. It was the only thing they have heard about. So it really reached out to so many people all over, and that's fascinating, and it's been very interesting to be part of that.
Yeah, it seems like it was good PR, not just for your film festival, but for the country of Sweden, really.
Yeah, for sure. And it was good PR also for the film festival, of course, both international but also nationally, where we presented the film. So we had a record audience also during this year, and I think that was partly because of the big fuss about this lighthouse project.
Brilliant, absolutely brilliant idea. So are you thinking of doing it again? Even hopefully the pandemic will be behind us by next year, but are you considering it again?
No, we will not do the same thing once again. It wouldn't be the same. It wouldn't have the same appeal to do repeat an idea like this. But we actually are discussing to make this kind of special screenings out there during summer maybe, and bringing a filmmaker and bringing a small audience out in the boats and screening films there, and having kind of a film weekend with a dinner and stuff there. So maybe we will keep ties to the lighthouse, even though we will not do this specific idea once again. No.
Okay, well, that makes a lot of sense. But it's great to have that connection with the lighthouse, the management there. I'll be interviewing Eric, who runs the operation out there.
Wonderful. Yeah, he's great, and he has been a very important partner in this project, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Also.
I would think so. Yeah, it's also so great. I was just excited to read about it, and I thought I got to put that on the podcast.
Of course.
Second I read about it. So Jonas Holmberg, and I apologize for not trying to do the perfect Swedish pronunciation of your name, but it was fun trying a little Swedish on you. So again, you're the artistic director of the Göteborg Film Festival, and I appreciate you so much being with me today, spending this time. And again, I just congratulate you and everybody on a successful event contest. It was just so much fun to read about. And thank you so much, Jonas.
Thank you very much.
We have one more interview related to Pater Noster Lighthouse.
That's right. I also spoke with Lisa Enroth, the nurse who won the opportunity to spend a week at the lighthouse in conjunction with the Gothenberg Film Festival. Lisa is an emergency nurse who for the past year has been on the front lines of the COVID-19 pandemic. She was chosen out of more than 12,000 applicants by the film festival to spend a week watching films at the Pater Noster Lighthouse. I spoke with Lisa a few weeks ago. Let's listen to that conversation now. I'm speaking today with Lisa Enroth in Sweden. And Lisa was the recent winner of a contest, of course, to spend a week at Pater Noster Lighthouse watching films. And that's pretty much what we're going to talk about today. Thank you so much for being with me, Lisa. I appreciate it.
Thank you for interviewing me.
So let me ask you first, before we get into the film festival and your stay at the lighthouse and everything. I know you work as a nurse.
Yeah.
Could you describe in a little more detail the kind of work you do as a nurse, and specifically what kind of work have you been doing for the past year?
Well, this past year has been very different from my other years as a nurse. I work at the emergency ward at my hometown. We have been taking care of corona patients for the last year, and it has been pretty stressful, actually, because not only are we in emergency ward with all the emergency that happens with trauma and diseases, but also on top of that, we have been taking care of all the corona patients, and all the corona patients that was admitted to our hospital went through my emergency ward. So we've been handling them all, and it has been intense.
Yeah, oh yeah, I'm sure the past year has been very stressful. It has been for all of us, for especially for those of you, I think, on the front lines, both in the U.S. and Sweden and everywhere else. It's been an interesting year, to say the least. So let me ask you, what led you to enter a contest where you'd be staying on an island with a lighthouse for a week watching films?
Well, as I wrote at my application, you had to write an email to apply to this contest. And as I wrote there, I said that I really wanted to isolate myself, because I haven't been isolating myself for the past year. A lot of my friends has been working from home, and I saw them struggle with trying to don't meet so many people. But in my situation, I felt I was meeting too many people. I had to interact with my colleagues. I had to interact with these COVID patients all days. And it felt like I really needed a pause. I needed something just to breathe for a moment. And when I saw the film that they had for trying to make people to apply to this thing, there was this girl walking around on the island, opening the lighthouse and just walking around all by herself, unfortunately in the dark, but well, she was. And I could really see myself doing that. So that's why I applied.
Yeah, I saw that video. It's really nicely done little video.
Yeah.
So I'm of course I'm a lighthouse buff, and I'm also a film buff. So if I knew about the contest early on and I was in a position to apply, I would have. But I think you were the perfect choice. So let me ask you. I know you're a film buff. I've read that in a number of the articles, and that comes through in your video diaries. Are you also interested in lighthouses at all? Was that a factor at all for you?
I'm interested in the importance of lighthouses during the times where ships were trying to reach the shores, but also I'm actually a lot interested in life saving. So I've been a lifeguard for like 20 years now. I try to go 1 week per summer just to do lifeguarding stuff around Sweden, and the ocean intrigues me. And my town is in the middle of Sweden with no ocean and almost no lakes also. So I'm really longing for the water, and the experience of being surrounded by water for 1 week was just great.
Yeah, I'm sure it was. So the film festival's contest to have someone stay at the lighthouse got a lot of media attention. Erik Nielsen Johansson told me there was something like 4,000 articles in the press about it. That's absolutely incredible. Were you surprised by all the attention you got when you were about to go out to the island?
I was. During the application interviews, they said that it might be some press, and how I felt about doing interviews. And I was like, yeah, it's going to be good. I thought like the local newspaper or maybe some radio show, but it was like nonstop for 2 weeks before I went, and then 2 weeks after I came home. It was nonstop press interviews, and I'm not really used to that. And
yeah, not many of us are. Yeah.
No, and just standing in front of a camera, trying to and especially in English, trying to make sense of what you want to say. But all of the interviewers has been so nice, and I felt like this is a positive thing that I've done, and that Göteborg Film Festival has done. So I haven't got any bad press or bad media or difficult questions that put me on the spot or something. It's just like everyone has been so friendly. So, but it's different. It's different to listen to your own voice.
Oh, yeah. Your English is perfect, by the way. It is.
Oh, thank you. I'm struggling, but no.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like you're struggling at all. And I understand CNN was one of the many media outlets that interviewed you all the way from the US. Yeah. Yeah,
there were. And when I was doing that interview, it was one before and one after when I came back again. I was just struck by, okay, so many people is going to listen to this. Okay, compose yourself, just breathe and try to not let them hear how nervous you are. And that was, it was amazing to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And once in a lifetime.
Oh yeah. I was going to say your 15 minutes of fame. It was a little longer than that, but
yeah, but it really felt like it. And I
Yeah.
tried to savor every moment, just to like be in the moment and enjoy it.
Sure. And that shows in your video diaries, which I was watching. And in the first video diary installment, you talked about the boat ride out to the island. That sounds like it was exciting. You mentioned the fast boat. What was that like going out there? Yeah.
It was brilliant. And I was so excited to finally be able to see the island. I've been Googling the island a lot before I went, but just to be able to see it in the horizon, the water was all clear, the sun was shining, and the boat was going so fast. That was really an experience. And then next to us was the boat with the press, the photographers from the press, and they were filming. And I was just trying to wave to them, but I just didn't really want to. I just wanted to look into the sun and look towards the island. So yeah, but it was just beautiful, and it really is in the middle of nowhere. It feels like it's, of course, I can see the mainland, but it felt really isolated when you were out there.
Several miles out in the ocean there. Yeah. What was your first impression when you arrived on the island?
I was kind of hyped because I've been doing interviews all morning, and I was struggling to get off the boat and up on the dock, and I knew that my only mission then was just to walk up to the place where I was staying and just close the door and just wait for 1 hour before the press leaves the island, because they were walking around for 1 hour just filming all the places and the sofa and the lighthouse and so I was just to stay in my room for 1 hour just trying to breathe, and I think I fell asleep for a while.
I can understand that,
because I was pretty exhausted. But when the press left, I just walked around and had a look. The sun was just going down, so it was beautiful. Yeah. But I was just walking around and checking out all the small buildings and yeah.
How were the accommodations where you stayed? Was it nice?
It was really nice. I had a real comfortable bed in a room, or actually in sort of like a house of my own. There was one more person staying on the island for safety. I did not really see her that much. We communicated through Post-its, and I was struggling with the stove a few times, trying to make it work. So that's when I needed to communicate with her. Otherwise, I had all the small houses for myself, actually. And the main building with the kitchen and the sofa area where I watched most of the movies, that was just beautiful. And just walking around in the building and knowing how old they were and knowing how much history there was in these buildings, and touching the desks where the lighthouse keepers used to welcome the one in the boats, the captains. They used to invite the captains and just sit down and talk about what happened in the world. And yeah.
That's great. I was going to ask you if you had a sense of the history there and what it was like for the lighthouse keepers and families who were there. So it sounds like you really did.
I did. And I just had the kitchen garden just outside my window. There were two of them, but I had one that was just outside my window. So I was often thinking about how it must have been to stay there.
It's amazing to me that someplace like that was what we would call in this country a family station. You know, the keepers lived there with their wives and children, that some children lived a good part of their lives on that little tiny island way out there. Yeah. We have some similar places here in the United States. So it's just incredible. One thing I was wondering about that unless I missed something in the articles or in your video diaries, what did you eat while you were there?
I had Göteborg Film Festival, actually, they bought groceries for me. So I could just tell them what I needed and what I could cook, and they bought them for me. So it was a what's it called?
Self-catering.
Catering. Yeah. That's it. So I just ate like chicken and salad and soup and beef and yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Just normal foods. And a
Sounds
lot
good.
of it.
Yeah, I know they serve a lot of seafood when people come to stay there. I don't know if you had
Yeah.
access to that at all, but
Yeah, I did, but I'm not very good in cooking fish
Mhm.
and crab and
Okay.
stuff like that, so I sort of stayed away from that. But
Sure.
they have lots of lobsters.
Yeah.
I've heard just around the island.
Yeah, that's what Eric was telling me. So you were very isolated, and you weren't allowed to have your phone or any other electronic devices, right?
No, that's true. I had no phone, and it was great. I didn't really think not having a phone would be a problem, and it wasn't. It was relaxing not to have this noise beside you all the time,
Mm-hmm.
and just to be able to watch a whole movie without being interrupted. I can really recommend it to others, just to put your phone in another room and just forget about it when you're watching a movie or a series or whatever you're watching, just to be really concentrated.
I have a bad habit, like a lot of us in this modern world. I'm on my phone too much, not talking on the phone, but just doing various activities on the phone. And
Exactly.
the idea of actually being away from it for a week, taking a vacation from it, is actually kind of appealing to me. I might have withdrawal symptoms at first, but I think it sounds really good to me. So your video diaries are a lot of fun to watch. It's like we're sharing your experience, and you're very expressive. I was wondering if you've done any acting.
No. Oh well, in my youth,
Mm-hmm.
when I was really small, I've done some acting, but no. And actually, the first application video that I sent when I was trying to be involved in this project, that was the first time I used my phone to film myself. So I'm not really used to it. When you see yourself on the small screen, when you're filming yourself, I had to cover that screen because I didn't want to see myself, because I was getting distracted and trying to think about how I looked. So I needed to put Post-its over it just to.
Yeah, I've struggled with those kinds of things too, but they came out really, really fun, and I know a lot of people have enjoyed watching those. And I'll tell people listening that if they get on YouTube, probably searching for your name would find them pretty easily. What's the best way to find them, do you think, if somebody gets on YouTube?
I think just for my name, I think.
Yeah, or Pater Noster, maybe Paternoster, Lisa or something like that. But they're easy to find, and I think there's 8 installments, and they're really, really fun to watch. So in the video diaries, you get very emotional at times. I can imagine that being isolated like that kind of brought out emotions, all kinds of feelings. 2-part question. I don't know if you want to comment on that, and what some of the emotions you felt there. And number 2, how did your emotions change or evolve during your stay there?
At first, I was really hyped. I was trying to relax and calm myself. But in a few days, I found myself slowing down quite a bit and not being so hype and not running around, and more like enjoying the experience and just staring at birds for 20 minutes. That was my best hobby to do. And just watching the ocean and watching the sun coming up and going down. And so at first I was really hyped, and later on I was starting to think more and trying to, and I found myself thinking about COVID and what it has done to the world, and how it has affected so many people, and how it had affected me. And I had some breakdown during my video diary going on, but it wasn't too bad. I didn't go
no, it wasn't
depressed or anything, but it was a different experience just to be alone with your own thoughts, and I think all the feelings got enhanced.
I can imagine by being alone in an environment like that everything would be kind of intense like that.
Yeah, because you can't share your feelings with anyone. And as I was watching also the movies, that was pretty pretty emotional. Some of them, or a lot of them, were pretty emotional, and you had no one to share that experience with, and that made a movie stay with you longer.
Now, I understand, as you mentioned, you could watch films in the house. They had a nice setup for you, or you could watch them at the top of the lighthouse. Did you do that much? Did you spend much time on the top of the lighthouse?
I did not actually watch any movies up there because the blinking lights made it sort of difficult. But I spent a lot of time there. I did. I spent a lot of time just sitting. They made it really comfortable for me up there, and I could sit and just enjoy the view. And I was really I was trying to see a seal during the whole week there. My number one thing was to try to see a seal, and they said that there was a lot of seals around the island. I did not see one seal. I don't know how that happened. I saw lots of birds, but no seals at all.
I wonder if the seals are there more certain times of year than other times.
Probably.
Yeah,
Probably.
Yeah. We have seals here as well, but like I spend a lot of time at our local lighthouse, Portsmouth Harbor Lighthouse, and I've seen a few harbor seals swimming around there, even coming up on the rocks. But we have volunteers who've spent time there for 5 or 10 years and never seen a seal, and they're always looking for them. So it's the same thing here. They can be a little elusive, but
maybe I just need to go back again.
Yeah, you do, and I'm sure you will one way or another at some point. Am I right about that? You think you'll go back sometime?
Yeah, I think. Yeah. I have to.
Yeah, I'm a movie buff. People who know me know movies are my other passion, along with lighthouses. And it's interesting hearing you talk about the different films. They're not just Scandinavian films, but there are films from all over the world, right? Or at least throughout Europe. I know there are various European films. And a lot of these are films that we don't necessarily get to see in the US, although sometimes on Netflix and that kind of thing, we get to see some of them. But what were one or two of your favorite films in the festival?
Wow, there were actually so many. There is one film that I saw that is nominated for an Oscar right now. I think it's called Drunk, or One Last Drink. It's a Danish movie with a couple of teachers that's decided to make reality of an experiment that includes trying to keep a constant level of drunkenness that means that they can still function and do their job, but they're on the things happen and they're not really functioning that good anymore. But so they're trying to be drunk for a long while, and things happen. It's a Danish movie, obviously.
Sounds interesting. I think the English title given to that is Another Round.
Another Round. Yeah, that's it. En runda till. Yes.
I have to admit, I cheated. I just Googled it on my phone. But
good.
Yeah. It says in the New York Times, they said a cinematic love letter to Denmark's drinking culture.
Yeah, exactly. Obviously, it's a Danish movie. Yeah, but it's brilliant, and I think the end scene and the song at the end, it's I've been listening to that song a lot when I'm back here again. I had to Google it. Yeah. And that's actually one thing I missed on the island. I wasn't able to Google stuff. So
I think so many of us just do that without thinking about it just so quickly. You hear about something you don't know anything about and you quickly Google it. I do that.
And then there's an Icelandic movie. It's called that's called A Song Called Hate, and it's about this Icelandic band who's called Hattari, and they are joining the Eurovision Song Contest, which is a really big song contest in Europe, and it is in Israel, and they are doing a coup, trying to hold up the Palestinian flag to get it shown on screen, and they succeed. And it is it's a documentary about how they did it and what led up to it and what happened afterwards. And that was really intense and a great documentary.
That sounds really interesting. So I'll watch for those. Maybe I wouldn't be surprised if at least those two films will probably show up on Netflix or some way to watch them here in this country.
Yeah.
So there were something like 60 films in the film festival. You didn't watch them all there, did you?
I watched the one that was on the program during the time that I was there. So it was 4 or 5 movies a day.
Wow.
For 7 days. So
that's pretty intense.
And all the short films also.
Right. Wow.
Yeah.
Did you feel movied out at any point?
No, I didn't, because there wasn't really so much
else to
do. So I really enjoyed the movies. I did. It was and when the sun comes down, it's dangerous to move outside on the cliffs and stuff. So
you might as well watch movies. Yeah.
Exactly.
You mentioned spending time at the top of the lighthouse. I was going to ask you what else you did on the island, but between maybe watching birds for a while and watching all those movies, there probably wasn't a whole lot of time to do much else.
That's true. I tried to get up when the sun came up, and I just walked around, and I trained a lot. I think in one of the video diaries I tried to show my gym. I had a So I did some exercising also, and cooking and eating and walking around, and just enjoying life on the island.
Yeah, it really sounds good to me in a lot of ways. So our listeners can't see you as they listen to this podcast, of course, but maybe some of them have looked at the video diaries. And if they do look at those, they'll see that you, at the time you're on the island, had bright pink hair. It's still partly pink at this point. I can see we're talking on Zoom here. If you don't mind me asking, does that color have any special significance for you? Is there a special reason for that?
Not the color, but the fact that my hair has a color, I think, has a significance, because I'm trying to brighten things up, trying to because as we walk around in our scrubs all day, there's not so many ways that you can show your personality. It's your socks, and that's about it. Your socks and your makeup. And I don't really wear makeup, and the socks is getting like a bit boring. So I needed to do something just to brighten up the everyday life. And it's not always pink. It has been every color of the rainbow, I think. So it's just one way to make things more happy.
Well, that's great. It does have a cheerful look. It made me happy to watch you on those videos. I have one final question for you for bonus points. Okay. Do you feel the experience of spending the week there in Pater Noster, did that experience change you in any way?
I'm not sure. It might have. I'm more conscious of the way I use my phone. I'm more conscious of all the time I spend holding it without really doing anything important on it. Just browsing around and Facebook and Instagram, and I find myself feeling that I don't need it. I need to do other stuff instead. So that's one thing. Maybe I enjoy the silence a lot more. Before I had the radio on every time I was on my own and by myself. I always had the radio or the TV on just to have some noise. I don't really need that so much. It might wear out. I might put the radio on again, but for now I'm just fine with the silence.
If you could, would you do it again?
Yes, I would, in a heartbeat. Please call me if you find the island and a way to isolate me for a week. Call me. I would like to.
We have some remote islands with lighthouses on the east coast of the United States where I am, but I don't know if it could be arranged for you to watch movies there for a week, but I'll see what I can do.
Okay, perfect.
We'll work on that. Well, Lisa, it's really great talking to you. It's I've been reading about you and watching you on YouTube and everything, and it's great meeting you via Zoom here. And if you do ever come to New England, to this part of our country, I'd be happy to to show you a lighthouse or two, maybe show a movie at a lighthouse or something like that. So,
Perfect.
yeah.
It's a date.
Okay, excellent. Well, again, thank you so much. I really do appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
To learn more about the Pater Noster Lighthouse Hotel, you can go straight to the English language version of the website at paternoster.se/en. That's PATERNOSTER.se/en.
These 2 episodes on Pater Noster Lighthouse were a lot of fun for me. I really enjoyed the interviews, and everyone was so friendly I almost feel like I was welcomed to Sweden as a guest. Next, we're going to introduce a new feature on this podcast. Because we're getting close to the busy season for lots of lighthouses around the country, we're going to give you a preview of some of what will be happening.
So we'll start in Maine. Friends of the Swans Island Lighthouse plans to open Burnt Coat Harbor Lighthouse and the restored Keeper's House around the 3rd week of June. There are newly installed windows in the lighthouse tower that provide a great view as you climb the stairs. In the Keeper's House, there's an exhibit by students from the Swans Island School, as well as works by local artists and a historical display. Check out burntcoatharborlight.com to find out more.
Cape May Lighthouse in New Jersey is offering some full moon climbs. These are rare opportunities for nighttime climbs up the 199 steps to the watchroom gallery of the 1859 Cape May Lighthouse during select full moon dates each year. The tours are 8 to 10 p.m. and they're scheduled for May 26th, June 24th, July 23rd, and August 22nd. You can get the details at Cape May Mac. Again, that's Cape May, M-A-C, capemaymac.org.
At Point Arena Lighthouse in Northern California, the lighthouse tower is closed for the foreseeable future, but the museum and shop are open to the public. The lighthouse is celebrating its 150th anniversary +1 this year. 2020 was the actual 150th anniversary, but the nonprofit organization that runs the site couldn't celebrate because of COVID restrictions. They just completed a writing contest, and there will be more events in the coming year. Go to pointarenalighthouse.org to learn more.
Port Isabel Lighthouse in Texas recently reopened to the public. The tours there are self-guided and are limited to 15 minutes. Groups of no more than 6 persons may tour at one time. Check out portisabellighthouse.com for more information.
We should also mention that Portsmouth Harbor Light Station in Newcastle, New Hampshire is celebrating its 250th anniversary this year. It was the first lighthouse established north of Boston in the American colonies. Friends of Portsmouth Harbor Lighthouses, a chapter of the American Lighthouse Foundation, is offering tours by advance reservation this season. See portsmouthharborlighthouse.org for the details.
Well, that's certainly a place that's very close to our hearts, Cindy.
Yes, oh yes it is.
Yeah. And I should also mention that our friend and the other co-host of this podcast, Michelle Jewel Shaw, is the chairperson of Friends of Portsmouth Harbor Lighthouses. Michelle and I will be helping with the tours this year. And of course, you are also on the organization's chapter leadership committee, Cindy.
That's right, I am. We're also planning a special virtual event for the 250th anniversary on June 6th. And we're going to have an art contest going on for the month of May. Details will be on our website. It's definitely an exciting year for our lighthouse group here on the New Hampshire seacoast.
It certainly is. And of course, there are many more exciting things happening at lighthouses besides the things we've just mentioned. And we'll be telling you more about events like these in future episodes.
Many thanks, tack, to the guests in our 2 episodes on Pater Noster Lighthouse in Sweden. Eric Nielsen Johansson in the last episode, and Jonas Holmberg and Lisa Enroth in this one. And thanks as always to all the volunteers, members, and staff of the U.S. Lighthouse Society and its chapters and affiliates around the world. Check out uslhs.org to find out more about lighthouse tours, the passport program, the research catalog, preservation grants, and all the things the Society has to offer.
You can always email me at jeremy@uslhs.org to let me know your ideas for segments on this podcast. And if you listen using Apple Podcasts, Audible, or any platform that allows you to post reviews, we'd really appreciate it if you could rate and review us. As always, thanks for listening and
keep a good light.
I'm gonna let it shine all in my heart. I'm gonna let it shine all shine, let it shine.